The Entrepreneurial Journey Podcast. We're talking business and building a culture that's kick-ass.
Hello, good morning, Michelle. How are you this morning?
I'm Boston, as they say, Nana. Thank you, Rebecca. How are you?
Very good, thanks. I've not come across that word for years and years and years.
Boston, yeah. Peaky Blinders country.
Yeah. Oh my God, I loved that series. I was a late comer to Peaky Blinders, but I absolutely adored it. Yeah, amazing. Anyway, we're here to talk about you, Michelle. Now, please introduce yourself because you have a fascinating sort of job title, business genre that you work in, and I want you to explain it.
Okay, well, I am the people reader. Just watch out, I might be. It's really funny actually because when I meet people and they go, "Oh my God, you're the people reader. Are you reading me?" And it's like, "Listen, love, are you paying me?" So, you're not paying me. It's so yeah. I jokingly known as the People Reader, my entire suite of analysis tools is under the umbrella of the People Reader tools. And being ADHD and empath, HSP, for those who want the proper title, highly sensitive person, I realised actually that throughout my life, even when I was a child, and I'd say, "Oh, what's wrong with so and so?" "Oh, stop being oversensitive." I'm not being oversensitive. I see things that other people don't see. So actually, it's kind of come round full circle. I became the people reader before I got diagnosed as ADHD and HSP. So it actually really fits.
That's really interesting. So years ago, I looked up empath, as my eldest daughter is very, very sensitive to other people's energy and emotions and things like that. And somebody said to me, she may be an empath. I went, what the hell's an empath? So I had to Google it. And sure enough, she's incredibly sensitive to other people's feelings and energy and vibes. And it means that in some instances, she finds it really hard to be in the same space as some people. Is
Yeah.
that the kind of thing you experienced?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
But I think there's something very key here. It's not always true. But I see a pattern, and it's people think it's witchcraftery, and I probably would have been burnt at the stake, a few years ago doing what I do now. But actually, there is nothing to be ashamed of. This is very natural. Why
Yeah.
should we not use our God-given talents? And actually, I find that people, especially in the young fundamental stages of life, if they've had a reason to exercise their intuitive bone. I call it a bone. I call everything a bone. Their intuitive bone, and they need to read the situation of what people are feeling around them. That's where it's exercised. If it's exercised in those fundamental years, you take it forward and you always have it. Now, for some people, they don't exercise it until later in life, but for some people, it's very natural. And I find that's usually when something big has happened in their life, in those early 7 years of life. So whether it's traumatic, whether it's anxiety, or whether it's just a big event, there is something that's enabled that intuitive bone to be triggered,
Yeah.
and it is very natural.
Yeah. Well, for my eldest daughter, is me leaving her father. Yeah, undoubtedly. Yeah.
Exactly.
She
That's
was
exactly. I
6.
didn't want to prod, but
Yeah.
it's exactly it. An event like that really triggers because the child has to understand how to read the room. What's going on? What does mom need? What does this mean? And they pick up on the emotions that we think we're hiding from them. I think
Yeah.
the worst thing we can do to brilliant young people is to say, "Oh, nothing. Don't worry about it."
Oh,
Just be
completely.
honest. Yeah,
Yeah.
just be
Yeah.
honest, and then they feel validated. And if it's a talent that they have, let them use it.
Totally agree. I don't understand. You can share information with your children at in an age appropriate way, but for God's sake, don't lie to them because they know they're not stupid.
Yeah,
You
they
know,
are. they're incredible beings.
Yeah.
Human beings are incredible. And in those
Yeah.
first fundamental years of our life, when our neural pathways are developing at 100 times the speed that they will ever develop in the rest of their life, it is absolutely vital that we give them the right tools.
Yeah.
Don't forget that because human beings are born helpless, we are still evolving outside of the womb for the first 7 years of our life. That's
Yeah.
crucial timing.
Yeah, it is. Now, Michelle Mills Porter, to give you your full splendid name, you have a kind of before and after story because you haven't always done this. And you were caught up, I think is the best way of describing it, in the tsunami. What year was the tsunami for people who weren't around at that time, too young to remember? What happened?
2004, the
Right.
biggest natural disaster in our living history, an earthquake the size of from here to Germany, the UK to Germany, 30 kilometres below the seafloor. This crack in the Earth's crust caused a massive tsunami, and it started in Indonesia. And it reached all the way to the coast of Africa. I mean, literally almost every corner of the globe. And I'm not a flatist, by the way. I know that the globe hasn't really got corners, but figure of speech, darling, figure of
Yeah.
speech.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, 250,000 people lost their lives immediately. Another estimated 250,000 people lost their lives through displacement, disease, and injury afterwards. The worst thing is that a third of all the lives lost was innocent children.
Oh. Oh, that's terrible. I hadn't realized that. I remember it was Boxing Day 2004, wasn't it? I remember it vividly. And you were there. Were you on holiday?
I was, yeah. We were 2 days into our fantastic diving holiday with a team of
Right.
divers from Bromsgrove in Worcestershire, and
Right.
we all travelled over together. And we were there on a fantastic exchange holiday with the dive centre in Sri Lanka on the
Okay.
beach. And we stayed at Hikkaduwa Beach Hotel in Hikkaduwa. My room was on the third floor. It's really funny, actually. A lot of people say things like this, but you look back and you think, oh my gosh, is there some pattern to the crochet of life? Because the night before, I remember asking very politely, asking at the hotel reception, is there any way that we could possibly move, upgrade our room, please? It's quite a budget holiday, being an exchange holiday. And they said, yes, of course we can upgrade you, but the rooms aren't ready tonight. And I said, well, when will they be ready? They'll be ready tomorrow. Okay, are you sure they can't be ready tonight? I'm sorry, madam, they can't be ready tonight, but we can move you tomorrow. Thank you. The rooms that they were going to upgrade us to were on the bottom floor. Now, we
Right.
were on the third floor of our hotel room when the tsunami hit. And it's another one of those little things that you think, thank goodness that didn't happen.
It that's just given me goosebumps. It's so life is so random, isn't it? I mean, it's just
Random
so.
patterns that are as intricate and one of those things, fractal patterns. You see patterns everywhere. It doesn't matter whether you're looking at rocks, flowers, nature, human beings. The patterns are undeniable. It's fascinating.
Now, up until that point, what business were you running?
So I launched a company called Fizz Bang Marketing, and it was
Okay.
amazing. I thought, this is it. This is my life's purpose. And I did business generation for other organisations, and we were winning every single feasible award going. Youngest company in the country to gain investors and people. We went from zero. I literally started with nothing, and we were. I remember my husband was linking the computers together by using wires and putting them in the slots above the above the suspended ceiling. And we were in this old converted chapel in Studley where we had our first offices, and we couldn't when we first started having employees, we used to say, don't use the bottom drawer. Oh, why is that? Is there something private? And then no, it falls out, and then the whole desk crumbles. That's where we started, but by year three, we were at 750,000 turnover.
Wow.
All this massive, and we were disruptive. So what we did is we said, look, marketing shouldn't be this way. Marketing should be like buying a loaf of bread. You walk in a shop, you know what you're getting, you walk out with your loaf of bread. What's all this smoke and mirrors? So what we said is we will get you appointments with the top people. So it's a marketing director at Microsoft or the VP of global marketing at Sony Ericsson. Doesn't matter. If that's who you want, that's who we'll get a really good appointment with, and we'll do the majority of all the kind of prep for you. And you just pay us if we get the appointment. If we don't get the appointment, don't pay us a penny. That's
Brilliant.
why, that's why we were doing so well.
Yeah, I mean, that's a no-brainer, isn't it? That's an absolute no-brainer. Yeah, brilliant. Okay,
I
so
didn't realise it was called disruptive marketing, but that's always who I've been. And I realised the maverick in me, that's why I've always been that kind of disruptive kind of, I always take the hard route.
well, do you know, nothing in life worth achieving is easy. And if it was easy, everybody would do it, wouldn't they, Michelle? Let's face it.
You know what you just reminded me of, Rebecca?
What?
You just reminded me, when I was a kid, there was this massive oak tree. And when in summer holidays, the older boys used to bang nails into the trunk of the oak tree, and all the younger kids would queue up and take their turn to climb the tree. And I was in the queue, and when it got to my turn, they used to say, "Come on, we'll give you a leg up." No thanks. I'd go around the other side of the trunk and make my own way. I would scratch my knees, I would fall, I'd bang my face, all sorts. But when I got to the top, the view was so much sweeter.
Yeah, it's true. Do you find, and I find this in myself and other entrepreneurs, if you see a big long queue, you automatically look for some way round it, or to shortcut it, or to just avoid whatever that is, and to find an easier way in.
Yeah, we're like water, aren't we? We find our rhythm. However, I'm going to change your example if you don't mind me doing that. For me, a queue of people means that you have got to cheat them in order to get to the front of the queue. That's the way my mind works. So for me, I'd rather think, what's the quickest way to walk to work? And I always find shortcuts. So for me, even if it's just, doing a racing angle in the car, or or slipping, just shaving off the corner, or swapping over the road and walking a shorter distance, I always find the shortest distance to work or something like that. If no one else is going to be hurt by it, absolutely, gloves are off.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm not rude. I'm not very good with rude people. No. So after Tsunami, what happened to Whiz Bang Marketing?
Fizz Bang.
Sorry, Fizz Bang.
Right, don't blame me for getting it wrong. So what happens is, I've realised now, and hindsight's a wonderful thing, I realised that I was completely out of sorts after the tsunami, and it was because in the face of adversity, our core drivers get recalibrated. So our core values, our beliefs, all of that stuff, they come up to the surface, and it's like, oi, what are you doing? This isn't fulfilling you. This isn't the path you're meant to be on. And you go, oh my God, I've put my whole life into this. What do you mean it's not what I should be doing? So it's in adversity that we get recalibrated. And do you know what? I've seen it after the pandemic. So many people after the pandemic are like, whoa, I don't want to go back to work. I'm not getting back on that hamster wheel. Why?
Yeah.
Because your core drivers have been recalibrated. And that's exactly what happened to me. Unfortunately, I had 14 staff, that most of them had kids, that they needed school uniforms, they needed food in the fridge. So I couldn't just close the company. So I carried on running it. But that had a massively detrimental effect on me. And this is what happens if you carry on unfulfilled and in a stress situation. You end up getting more and more stressed, more and more anxious, and then it turns into illness. And if you don't pull the plug, it turns into breakdown. And for me, that's what happened. It turned into a medical breakdown, not a mental breakdown, a medical breakdown. The list of things that went wrong with my body, you would not believe. And there was a point in time when the doctors actually said to me, Michelle, if you don't step away from business, you are not going to be here in a year. Everything was going wrong. I had cancer, I had adrenal exhaustion, I had fibromyalgia, I had the worst eczema on my hands and feet you've ever seen. All my fingernails fell off. I had slip discs, internal infections, stopped me being able to ever have children. Sleep apnea, diabetes. The list was endless. And it got to a stage where I had to do something. So I was having a disc taken out of my neck. And what I'd done is I was really careful about rehoming all of my staff. So I rehomed all of my staff. And then when I was lying on my back, my husband came in to the into the hospital and said, it's done. And he had worked with my solicitors to close the business down. Didn't sell it. I didn't try and get anything from it. I just closed the doors very quietly. Nobody was hurt. Nobody was hurt. Everyone was rehomed. Some of them in
Good.
their dream jobs,
Oh,
you know,
good.
in football in America, or you know, or actually somebody Tori relocated to Australia. That's what she always wanted to do. So I enabled that to happen, and then closed the doors very quietly and
Okay.
concentrated on my own recovery.
Quite right too. You provide a really good example there, and I've often said this to clients: is your body will get you to stop, and it'll send you signals, and it will increase the severity of those signals until you listen to it. So it will start off with little signals, and it will just build and build and build unless you stop and listen to it. And if you don't stop, it will wipe you out so that you have no choice but to stop.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's what happened to you.
Yeah, it's so funny because I'm a defiant little Rottweiler. Persistence, people always say that they love my chutzpah or my persistence or that I'm dogged, but I do like to achieve things, So for me, when I'd put all the emotion of my life into building what I call my baby, when I had the ability to have children taken away from me thanks to the tsunami, all of a sudden you're like, is that business really my baby? It's never going to call me mommy. It's never going to have my eyes. It's a flipping building and an idea and a bunch of people that I've employed. It is not my baby. Let it go, and yeah, absolutely. My whole body. If you'd have asked me a few years before, do you think that emotions and trauma can have an effect on you on a cellular level? I'd have thought, maybe after the tsunami, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, no shadow of a doubt.
Yeah. Have you read the book, The Body Keeps the Score?
No, I've tried to, but I'm really crap at reading. I've got it on audio, and
It's a
I've
hard
tried.
book.
I didn't get into it. There's so many people that say, yeah, it's really good, but I'm a very critical person. I'm more critical of myself than anyone. But if ever you want me to look at something with a critical eye, I will be honest. And it's, I just couldn't get into it because it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I'm not saying that it's not a good book, but I have ADHD and reading is something I never do. Listening to things on audio is something I can only do if I'm doing something else. It's okay.
I loved the book. It was a really hard read. But yeah, trauma is kept at a cellular level. It creates dis-ease. High levels of stress create cortisol, which creates deficiencies in your cells, which creates cancer, heart disease, stroke, etc., etc. So yeah, it was an incredible book, and the way the people who wrote the book described how they help people out of trauma is the bit that I found most interesting, because they use a lot of EFT, emotional freedom technique, eye movement patterns, massage.
Yeah,
It was a lot of physical therapy.
None of it's ever worked
not
for me. I've
just
tried
talking
everything.
therapy.
The thing that works for me is definitely hypnotherapy. And I think the reason is I'm a massive control freak and I hold on, to everything with white knuckles. And so I understand that if I'm in control and I'm doing cognitive behaviour therapy or hypnotherapy when we get into the subconscious, then I have no choice. If it's anything else, I think that I resist too much. Maybe that's what it is. But I think what you've got to do is you've got to find your own route. And there's no point. So many people coming, I can help with this, I can help with that, I can help with that. What they were doing is they were pulling the corks out and then running off and leaving me in a desperate situation. Please don't do that to people. Let people tell you what they want in terms of their recovery. Don't force your ideas upon them because it's different from everyone. That would be my only bit of advice on that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. Okay, so you obviously have recovered and you look like you're in full health, which is fabulous. Let's hope you are. Apart from the irritation with guinea pigs, which is a an
Oh no, it's
allergy
irritating.
rather than
I've never
irritated
dealt
by guinea
with pee
pigs.
and poo so much.
But guinea
Never.
pigs is they're quite cute though, aren't they? So tell me about your
Okay,
business
so
now and
before
how
I do
did
that, I
that
just
get
want to
started?
just say one thing, if I can, just to finish off that whole thing about health. One thing that people don't realise is they will quite often look at somebody who's
Okay.
holding weight and they will have an opinion. People think you eat too much cake and chips. People think that you don't look after your diet. People have jumped to these conclusions, which are quite often wrong. Let me tell you one thing. One of the biggest things for me, massive weight gain. Now, that is due to trauma because when you are in fight, flight, or freeze, your body, your brain decides it's going to look after the vital organs. Everything else is secondary, it's not going to work. So it puts all its energy into your heart and your liver and all those kind of things. But things like your digestive system are put on the back burner. So, regardless of the fact that I was only eating 1,500 calories a day max and still exercising a lot, my body's retaining the weight because my digestion isn't working. So, we need to be kinder to each other. And that was a massive thing for me. I'm not back 100%, but I'm going to the gym 3 times a week. I've got an e-bike. I'm on the bike twice a week. I'm things that I'm doing now that I couldn't have done when I was 23 stone, and I was 23 stone following the tsunami. Yeah, a lot of that had to do with trauma, with steroid injections. A little bit of it was, relying on alcohol to help me with the memories and things like that. There's a lot. It's very complicated. That it all boils down to emotions. That's the key. In terms of my business, there are several things that I learned in the aftermath of the tsunami. First of all, that human beings are freaking magnificent. And it's only when you see them in the face of adversity that you realize there is this benevolence, this compassion, this ability to put your life on the line for a complete stranger. And if you're not getting goosebumps now, I've got enough for all of us, because that's what you see. And it's beautiful. And you can't see that and unsee it ever. The second thing is that we don't have any problem communicating, and we don't have any problem with rank and all the rest of it when we have a shared goal. If there is shared goal, we realise that everyone's got something valuable to bring to the party. It's all of equal value. We all fit into a slot. We communicate brilliantly, we collaborate brilliantly, and it just happens. What you need for that to happen is a shared goal. And that's the key thing. The other thing is that we are all motivated by an unseen force. So you can see somebody that you think you know, and you see them doing something, and you think, what's that about? Where does that come from? And it's hidden in those underlying layers of your subconscious, going right back to those fundamental years between the age of 0 and 7, and all the lessons that you learned then form your true drivers, your driving force. That driving force is responsible for your motivation. Now, what I realize is that you have to be in line with that motivating force in order to find fulfillment and happiness. And when you're out of alignment, that's when you start to get stressed, ill, all the rest of it. So it's aligning yourself with those things. So, in terms of my business, I have a whole suite of analysis tools that help uncover your subconscious core drivers in, guess what, 6 or 7 minutes. People say, oh yeah, if you want to know what really drives you, what really fulfills you, it's a 6-month program. It's going to cost you. No, it's do my analysis, 6 or 7 minutes, and I'll tell you exactly what your subconscious drivers are. If you know that, then you know the secret to being fulfilled, and you know the secret to being happy. And everything that you do will give you a little cheat sheet at the bottom, tells you all the things that are going to trigger you and all the things that you can do to top up your bucket and look after your own mental health. I then have a behaviour profile, which is just the very best behaviour profile I've ever seen in my entire life. And I say that in a cocky manner, but it's because I've used the work of William Walter Marsden, who created DISC and made it open source. I've used his theory and I've added to it. So what I deliver people just say, Michelle, I've done profiles all my life. Never have I seen results like this. And it really shows people where they shine. And it's massively empowering. So people who've done profiles before and say, yeah, that made me feel pretty crap. That's not what my profile's about. My profile shows everyone that they have their chance to shine. If they're a little bit shit at something, they're going to have something they really shine at, and vice versa. So it is beautifully written, in my opinion. And yes, I'm cocky about it. Why not?
And can anybody
No,
access
they
those
can. I mean, if they
profiles, or
want
do they have
to
to be on
do
one of your
one-on-one with me
courses?
and access those profiles, absolutely. I have a family of practitioners that
Yeah.
deliver it as well.
Okay.
But you have to have a licensed, certified
Okay.
practitioner to take you through it, because it's more than duty of care. We have a responsibility to empower others. If that's the only thing that my whole family of practitioners do, then fair play. We must empower. We must not allow anyone to get the wrong end of the stick, to look at it in a way that's going to make them feel disempowered. This is an empowering tool, and so therefore it needs to be delivered. So I tend to go into organisations and deal with the whole workforce and take them all through the programme and hold their hand through their personal development journey. But I also hold open courses, and of course there are places where you can do it one-to-one.
Okay, so I always put details of links in the podcast, so I'll do that so that people know how to contact you, because I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who'd be really interested in that. So I'm fascinated, when you go into organizations, I know I give this warning with the work I do. Look, because we're going to do a culture shift, because we're going to perhaps change things here, you may lose people along the way. Is that okay? And do you find that with the work you do, some people go, oh,
Actually,
I'm in the wrong
no,
place, I
and I'll
need to be
tell you
somewhere
why. I'll
else?
tell you why. Two very good reasons. First
Okay.
of all, I
Okay.
only work with companies that are people passionate. So if you're people focused, it's not good enough for me. If you're people
Okay.
passionate, you will get what I do. And I find that B Corp organisations and people passionate
Okay.
organisations, they're already aligned. They know what I'm doing. And so they're very happy for that. And so therefore there is also almost a level of emotional engagement already. But secondly, when I'm going through people's core driving force, and I'm saying, look, your subconscious forces are telling you that this is how you need to be fulfilled. Let's take an example. I'll use my sister. My sister is a counsellor and psychotherapist, okay? Before she had her own practice, many years ago, she was a prison officer. Now, she couldn't fulfill her core needs of
Okay.
supporting and nurturing and all the rest. She can't do that in prison. It's a very, very tough prison. And it was, she was in there with murderers and
No.
rapists and all sorts. So she couldn't fulfill that role. However, the brain doesn't understand the difference between clocking on and clocking off. So if she can fulfill what she needs outside of work, she's still fulfilled. So she might have to go to work and do the job of a prison officer, but if she can do something outside of work that fills those buckets that she needs so
Yeah.
desperately, the brain doesn't know the difference between clocking on and clocking off. So you can still be fulfilled. So what I say to people is,
Yeah.
if you're
Yeah.
not getting what you want to be fulfilled in your role at work, then do something in extracurricular activity, and carry on doing your job. It doesn't mean you have to
Yeah.
leave,
Yeah.
so carry on doing that, but just make sure that you're filling your buckets in a different way.
Yeah, totally. I use Maslow's hierarchy of need for that and say, look, if work isn't giving you the self-actualization, have a hobby, an interest, something outside of work that does give you that, because it will be there somewhere. It might not be work. For some people it is, for some people it isn't. But yeah, you're right. You can you can absolutely have both. Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. So you have associates who are trained in your profiling system. Where are
Do
you
you know
taking the
what? A
business?
little bit
What's happening
like
next?
COVID, except the beautiful version, the angelic version. I want to infect the world with this ability to be able to understand others. All of my
Okay.
tools are designed to say, oh, that's what you believe
Yeah.
in. This is what I believe in. And guess what? You're not my enemy just because you don't share my beliefs. That's where it's created. Yeah, if we can understand that
Oh,
actually you perceive the world
completely.
a different way, that's really
Yes.
beneficial. We can work together. then that's key. So everything
It's
I do
yes.
is about learning to communicate and to achieve things together. It's all about that beautiful collaboration. And I'll tell you why. After the tsunami, it felt like the whole
Yeah.
planet was vibrating with this blue aura of love, vibration. And I'll tell you where other people may have seen it. You know, when we were standing out in the streets clapping for the NHS. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about, that feeling of connection with people that you can't even see, that love that vibrates. That's what I'm talking about. That collaboration is absolutely beautiful. And once you've touched it, you can't ever forget it.
Yeah, yeah, it is beautiful. Yeah, I've experienced it a lot. A lot of my NLP training, and there's a lot of NLP friends I've got all over the world, and I think there's definitely that sense of all of us who've been through that experience, particularly the trainings in Florida. Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt, it is lovely. Okay, so if your business had a personality or a
Well,
character,
if it
how
was
would you
me, it would
describe
be
it,
Daffy
Michelle?
Duck. Do you know it's funny? We talk. My husband and I I love my husband to bits. We've been together 30 years this year, and he's my toy boy, and he's
Oh,
gorgeous.
oh wow!
But we talk in cartoon characters, and I
Oh,
once said to him, "If I was a cartoon character, who do you think I'd be?" And he said, "Yosemite Sam." Do you know that? You know the cowboy, the rootin' tootin' cowboy on Bugs Bunny? Because he thinks I'm an angry little
I
thing.
certainly do.
But you see,
Yeah,
he sees the true behaviour. The one thing that we don't do is we don't show our natural behaviour at work.
right.
We show the version that we want people to see. And it's not manipulative, it's just that's what society expects. But
Yeah.
actually, it's only the people that truly love us that get to see the real us.
It's true, warts and all, grumpy days. And Yosemite Sam
I'm
has
glad
the
to
big
say
handlebar
laser
moustache,
treatment
doesn't he?
has
Here.
stopped from having that handlebar moustache now, but I did have to go through quite a lot of laser treatment in order to get rid of it. But yeah, if my personality, if my company had a personality, there's two companies. There's MMP Limited, which is me as a speaker and a trainer and me, and then
Okay.
there's the People Reader, which is that's more beautiful. So that's the Daffy Duck. The MMP is the Daffy Duck, but the People Reader Limited,
Okay.
that's the one that is really collaborative and kind, and it's very. It's like a shepherdess, and we're elevating people and holding people up. So I don't know what it is yet, but that's the kind of feeling that I feel when I think of the people.
Amazing. Oh, thank you so much for your time today, Michelle. I know you're super busy, and I hope that you do spread that joy across the world, because the more people understand each other,
It's my
the
absolute
better
pleasure, and
the
so
world will
thank you
be.
so much for
Thank you.
having me.
The Entrepreneurial Journey Podcast. We're talking business and building a culture that's kick-ass. Where we make it happen, grab your seat, let's have